What X is about is it follows this group of 6 people who are trying to make an adult film, and they're all trying to kind of get famous and rich off of it. And, the cast of characters you follow, they all have different motives for this. You have the main character, Maxine Minx. She basically just wants to get famous, wants to get rich. It's her life goal to be famous, a Hollywood celebrity. As the series moves on, they kind of hit on that a little bit more. And aside from our main character, Maxine, you have a cast of supporting characters that all have their own little motivations and reason they're making this film as well. I mean, you have the supporting star in Brittany Snow. She's kind of the secondary actress to Mia Goth. She's trying to get famous, trying to make some money the same way so she can live a simple life. She's filming with Kid Cudi, who we recognize in this. He's like an ex-Marine or something. And you have Jenna Ortega made a cameo in this movie. She's got a little bit of a role. So there's a decent number of people in this movie you will recognize, even if you're unfamiliar with the franchise before you go in. The first immediate standout to me, even from the opening shot of this movie, is the way it's filmed. I absolutely love it. Like this grainy, like 1970s picture. It kind of is like a homage to like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it really works for the subject matter. I couldn't even see this movie working in modern times because, you think back to the times where everyone's trying to become a Hollywood star. Nobody has cell phones. Very grainy, like the adult industry is just coming up. I think it's just the absolute perfect genre for a slasher, even better than the 80s, if I'm being honest. And when our cast of characters does get to this farmland and they get to the cabin that they've rented from this older couple, they haven't disclosed to the older couple what they're doing on the land. So you have a very mysterious tone. You have this older guy and his wife who are kind of unsettled and, not comfortable with the fact that this young group of people is kind of walking around naked on their property all the time. And shortly after filming this movie on this older couple's property, you start to realize really quickly something is off with this older couple. And if you know anything about this franchise, they give you a backstory kind of what is wrong with this couple in the second movie, Pearl. But since you don't know that going into X, you just know something's off with this couple. And now you have this little bit of like a mix of a comedic, like adult film and a slasher, which kind of blends perfectly somehow. Starting off with Mia Goth as Maxine, I don't think you could have possibly cast that role better. Going back and rewatching this, I mean, she doesn't have as much screen time in his dialogue and acting as she's required to have in Pearl. But I think she's just absolutely phenomenal in this movie. And I think that going forward, no matter what she ends up doing in her career, I know she's been in a ton of horror movies. I will never see her as anything else besides Maxine. She's that good for this role. And it's kind of ironic that the whole premise of these Maxine style movies is, like Maxine's going to be a star. We're going to remember her. And I think it's kind of ironic that they captured this with her in this role because she's so perfect for this role. I cannot imagine anybody else killing this role the way she does. Getting into some of the secondary actors and actresses, starting off with Brittany Snow. She's kind of like the secondary girl to Mia Goth in the adult film they're making. And I really liked her in Would You Rather. That's a movie I've rewatched a couple of times. I have some fun with. But I know she's in that remake of Prom that I don't think anybody could have saved that movie. But regardless, I think all the viewers can agree that she has aged like a fine wine because this woman is... oof, there's something about it. But either way, she is really good in this movie. She has really good comedic timing. I kind of wish she had a couple of more minutes on screen, but the time she is on screen, I think she's really good for the role they cast her in. Also interesting to see Jenna Ortega in this movie. This was a movie in a role that kind of went under the radar for her. She plays this really quiet, prude girl who's acting as a fluffer on an adult film set. And they nickname her Church Mouse because of that. She's kind of so innocent compared to all the other adult film stars on the set. I think she has to depict fear a lot more, genuine terror. I think this is the movie in my eyes that I always remember her as, like becoming a Scream Queen. Because as good as she is in Scream 5, this is the movie where she's asked to do a lot more. And as I said, a lot of people don't know this role exists, but I think the little time she does have on screen, she really stands out in this movie as having a ton of potential, and I really see why she kind of blew up because of it. And last honorable mention for actors, and the most surprising one ever. If you talked to me 2, 3, 4 years ago about this, I would have said there's no way in hell this statement would have came out of my mouth. That is Kid Cudi as the male porn star. Something I kind of forgot before I went back into it is how good he is at this role. And a sentence, again, I don't think I would have ever said a couple of years ago is that I don't think anybody else could have been cast to play this role as well as Kid Cudi did. And that's the biggest surprise to me as anybody else. I don't know how they managed to cast this. I know he helped produce it, but this dude's absolutely awesome and hilarious in this role. And acting aside, that's definitely something that stands out to me about this movie is just the cast of characters they managed to build where you spend a lot of time in this movie with the 6 characters. And I definitely think they stand out for a bunch of good reasons. I think they're just a fun group of people to hang out with. They're very believable. They're also pretty genuine, the way they kind of depict them as film stars on the set, but also just professionals, real people off. I think there's some really cool, profound scenes where you kind of have them singing Kumbaya with a banjo, all talking about how it's just work. They're very professional and, they can have love outside of it. They're all just doing this to get famous, make money. There's just worse characters you could spend the first half of a slasher movie with. I know that that's kind of a trope in horror movies. Where you just hate the characters. You want them to get killed off. I didn't really hate any characters in this movie, even as sleazy as some of them are. I think they're well written. I think they're cool people to hang out with on screen. This movie's also broken in half right down the middle almost perfectly, where the first half of the movie, it's just them filming an adult film, a bunch of comedic relief, some horror undertones, creepy elements, things like that. In the second half, the movie just goes batshit crazy. It embraces the slasher genre entirely. That's where all the fun begins. But for that reason, you get a surprising amount of comedic relief in this movie. Like a lot of humor in this movie you wouldn't expect to land. My theater laughed a good 10 to 15 times this movie. I kind of forgot how funny this movie is, honestly, but it really lands.
Would you like to come inside?
Much obliged.
When the jokes are landing and you're getting to know the characters, there is no shortage of nudity in this movie, both female and non, so be warned. I know it's kind of like a hot topic nowadays, movie critique, saying there's useless sex scenes, things like that. I do not care. It's just a part of film. Does not bother me at all, but be warned. When you get to the second half of the movie and it goes full slasher and it just gets batshit crazy, I think it's like the perfect blend of creative and artsy. Another thing that really makes this movie stand out, and it's something that Ty West has always been extremely good at, in my opinion. I find this movie's second half to be a really cool blend where it's kind of a traditional slasher where you have a bunch of creative kills, but it also just has like a ton of really creepy and unsettling imagery and undertones related to the older couple. I think the blend is basically perfect. So this movie does a good job at kind of covering the bases of basically every type of horror family. If you're just there for the traditional slasher, you'll definitely be rewarded. I think the kills are great, but it also has a little bit more substance as it is an A24 movie, has a little bit more artsiness to it. Amongst all the standout memorable scenes in this movie, I have a couple that come to mind, no spoilers, but the car scene, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. Between the music, the lighting, I think that scene's absolutely iconic. It's awesome. I love it. You have the final port scene. I think that's one of the best scenes. It's absolutely hilarious. My theater was laughing in an uproar. And only a close second to the car scene is probably the barn scene for like an unsettling, cool kill scene. I just think there's like a ton of memorable kills in this movie that makes the breakup of the runtime, the comedic relief. This movie kind of flies by and I love it. What I really like about this movie and what I really think makes this movie memorable is where they choose to go with the slasher route. You know, when the first half of the movie is as artsy as it is, it's just kind of being a comedic relief movie with an adult film. You get to the second half, they could have just choose to go the traditional route of every slasher. We have a guy with a knife, he's killing people. We've seen that done a dozen times. But the route this movie chooses to go when it comes to a slasher in the second half is not just full-on slasher. You know, without spoiling it, it's very like abstract and like the horror they're trying to talk about. I think it's very creative, it's very memorable because the tones of what they're kind of preaching when it comes to aging, the feeling of missing out on your youth and that leading to envy of other young people like Pearl is in this movie. I think that's really powerful. You know, time is fleeting, it's a finite resource. Now, a lot of movies touch on age, but for some reason, I don't know if it's because of the way they design the story, it's a horror movie. This movie really stuck with me the first time I saw this movie, even more so this time. But being able to tell a story that's creepy and unsettling while also being profound about the concept of age, I think that really is the horror to X. Is, you know, the concept that we are all aging, looking at what old people are like, you know, now unedited. It's a very unsettling concept to see the way they depict old people in this, you know, how vulnerable they are, how resentful they are. The fact that you might end up like that someday, there is something that's more depth to this movie than just a slasher movie. There's a reason I love this movie. I don't know. There's just something so unsettling about the way they choose to go about that tone of aging. Some people might have some issues with this movie when it comes to the pacing of this movie. There's a lot of sex scenes, a lot of adult film stuff. Might find like that's filler. I don't mind it. I think it's really funny the way they film it, the dialogue. I mean, some people might also take like issue with the unsettling imagery, the way they portray old people. Again, it does not bother me. I think that's actually the central focus of this movie. So again, I find that to be a positive, if anything. When I first saw this movie a couple of years ago, I thought it was going to suck. I had no expectations for it, but I went and saw it. I absolutely loved it. It was a hidden gem that year. I will say upon revisiting it, I think I like it even more the second time when I catch more undertones after seeing Pearl, some of the hidden messages, some of the subtle choices of dialogue, cinematography. I liked it all better the second time. You have some great acting that leads to some memorable characters in this movie. I think the movie looks great. It's filmed very creatively. You have some super cool and creative kills that are memorable, great music choices. You have some profound messages when it comes to aging. All of it adds up. I don't know. I think X is just fucking awesome. So obviously, these are my opinions. You know I love this movie, and if you've seen this movie, comment down below. Let me know if you love this movie and this trilogy as much as me. If you haven't subscribed already, what the hell are you waiting for? I kind of do it all on this channel. I do new releases, scary stuff, tier list rankings, series rankings, all of it, so join me down below. That's all I got in this video. Peace.